All right, welcome to Nested Loops. We're doing the shape up. I believe it's chapter 9 and 10. So Alexis is doing that, so I'll turn it over to her.
Yes, I will screen share. All right. Review mode. Can you guys see my slides? No?
Yes,
Okay, no.
this is good.
Yep. Okay, great. So chapter 8 discussed the betting table, the process for betting table. And then now it's time to place your bets in chapter 9. So rather than going into the regular process that they use, that Basecamp uses for adding new features to an existing product, this chapter explained like an alternative cycle for when they have to create new products or have ideas for new products. So let's look at what they do. Yeah, so they use a house as an analogy for adding features versus creating a new product. They attribute adding features to just making a piece of furniture inside a house that already exists. And just adding that furniture versus creating a new product where it's more like, you're building out the foundations of a new house and you're laying out the structure. So what they do for new products is they have 3 phases. First phase is R&D mode, second phase is production mode, and the third phase is the cleanup mode. And we'll take a look at those 3 phases. Starting with the R&D mode. So normally, you have your pitches, and then all the pitches are on the betting table, and then they're well shaped already. So the difference here in R&D mode is the senior group. If they have ideas, they want to sharpen the vision a little bit. So it is limited to only seniors at this stage, like the CTO and like maybe a senior designer. And then, yeah, it's not really like there's no hard like technical like specifications or anything. And the expectation is to spike and not ship. So you define the form of like solving a problem. So it's a very, very basic state. And it will not be available to customers at this foundational stage. So yeah, whatever you create is a spike. And yeah, it just prototypes, I'm assuming. And then when they actually get into the production mode, the shaping is detailed and expectations are clearly defined for the end of the cycle. So this is when it starts to look more like a typical 6-week cycle that we've been talking about. And you bring in the dev team, right? So the team goes beyond these seniors. The bigger group is tasked with the project. The expectation is now to ship, but that doesn't mean that they're going to launch the product to the customers right away. It means it's going to go into the code base, and hopefully it will remain untouched there, and it will be part of their code base. And then, so at the end of the cycle, just because something has shipped does not mean it will make the final cut that goes out to customers. This is why it's important to differentiate, I guess, like between this new product cycle or process. Like it doesn't necessarily go out to customers. So yeah, the 6 weeks spent on the feature is still a bet, and it may not work out. And then, so the last phase is cleanup mode, and then they can do bug smash, as described in chapter 8. There's no shaping. They want to cut distractions. So yeah, I guess like, when you're like editing a video, you want to like put away all the like empty frames where no one's talking or like, useless discussion. So yeah, cut distractions. Free for all with team members, everyone jumps in to help. Work is shipped continuously in small bites. So work is constantly going out. and it shouldn't last longer than 2 cycles. So they gave some examples of products they've worked on using this process. So the leaders have a new idea called Hey for an email app and service. They didn't really go into detail what exactly is unique about Hey, but yeah, it's an email app. And then it was in R&D mode for the first year of development. So it was just, the leaders like spiking and, senior level people like iterating. And then it went into R&D and production overlap after the first year. So see, like it takes a while to make a new product from scratch. And then every bet was placed at one time. So every like piece of the project was placed at one time. And then of course they have their normal Basecamp product to work on. So, I guess it would work on this alternatively or like work on this with different teams. And then they grew an appetite for how many cycles they wanted to spend. So obviously I don't think they expected to spend like 2 years on this. But they just kept going because they thought it was worth it and they wanted to bet on the projects. And then, so Hill Chart is a feature in Basecamp, but I guess the feature was so new and so different that they felt it was too risky for the normal feature path, and they did not want to launch to customers yet. So it was treated like a new product. And the first cycle, they just wanted to get it working enough for themselves to use. And then feeling confident after that, they used a second cycle and then they shipped the product. And then they highlighted some questions you can ask along the way, involving like problems and how to weigh them. That's the first question. So does the problem matter? So when thinking about new products or new features, you want to try to weigh problems against each other. So they're saying is probably more important than that problem right now. This also has to do with timing, which is I think the next question. And different team members may weigh problems differently. Will this problem solve something for a small set of customers, but put a disproportionate burden on support? Obviously, if you're on the support team, you're going to be like, no, let's not do that. But if you're like, I don't know, on the customer, like UX research side, you're probably going to be like, hey, this is worth it because of XYZ reasons. And then, so while you're shaping the solution, you may create solutions that ask more questions. So like, is this solution too complicated? Can we rethink this? Can we do like 20% of the work for 80% of the results? Questions like that can arise. And is the appetite right? So after a solution is shaped, there can be stakeholder rejection if they don't want to spend the time on it. Yeah, and I wrote, this can be solved in a meeting. They gave an example of bringing in a perspective that a stakeholder hasn't probably looked at. Like maybe it sounds trivial, but support has to go through 11 time-consuming steps to get to the resolution. Yeah, so that this needs to happen, give like a stronger case for why the solution works. Shaper might let the idea go if interest is too low. And then the shaper might work on smaller version or do more research. If there's not enough data to support the solution, you can go do more research. Is the solution attractive? So at the betting table, there are differences in solution. So the example they gave has to do with UI. Like someone might propose like a button somewhere, but the real estate has to be sacrificed and is very important for that space to be used for other info. Like, should we go ahead and do it or offer a different place where a button could go? And then this is where it like gets into the weeds a little bit. So when you're planning, the process is to try not to spend too much time designing and getting into the weeds. And go back to high level, like, what do you call those? The drawings? I forgot the term they use. The fat marking drawings are like something board.
What, the
Breadboard?
breadboards?
Yeah, yeah. All right, and then finally, is this the right time? Keep team morale up by betting on a project in a new area. So yeah, they were talking about how, if teams have been working on this specific portion of the project for too long, they might get tired of working on it. So they might want to jump into something shiny and new. And then it goes the other way too. So, if you want to keep the shiny projects at bay, to spend time with some more important like customer requests or fixes that are overdue, you should probably do that first. So order is important. Right timing is important. Also, there's this one. Let's see, I think this is the last one. Are the right people available? So you have a core product team, right, which is a big team. And then for a bet, they usually take a small team out of the core product team to work on that one bet. So the yellow, I forgot to note here, the yellow is the designer and there are 2 programmers. And then they refer to a calendar Tetris for availability. So if someone's, working on a project and it's ending in a week, and then someone else, is available that week as well, they like put them together to figure out the schedule. And then, I'll talk about it later. So the kickoff message, after the bets are made, someone from the betting table posts details and who will work on them. A message board. So kind of like a scope, except not as detailed. They just set like the expectations for the end of the project. And that's it for chapter 9. Any questions on that chapter? Any questions?
So I feel it interesting to me when you're talking about the breakdown, the R&D, and then the research mode, the R&D, the production, and then the cleanup mode. And then that idea combined along with the other picture of, I don't know if it's a picture, but the idea that you have multi-bets in one, because he was showing the team, what was he saying? He was showing the team, the core team, that you take a small sub-portion of the core team. So this is the part where it feels like Agile again, but with six-week cycles instead of 2 or a month, or depending on one, right? Where sometimes we're doing basically spiking, sometimes we're doing big product stuff. Arguably, that's the bulk of it. Sometimes we are doing cleanup, and it all fits in this. And then it's okay right here. So a small team works on one bet. So it's like the core product team. I guess everyone's doing work. No one's taking a vacation, but you have little guys doing little bets. So this is the part where it feels to me, this is just like a 6-week iteration with some spike cards, some production cards, some cleanup cards. Though the implication with the previous picture is that they have dedicated bug smash cycles of up to 2.
Yep.
Which kind of we do. Obviously, like whenever we develop, we go and we build stuff, and at the end we do a lot of bug fixing, cleaning up, and testing. So it feels, at this point, it feels just like Agile with big iterations, except for the fact that we do all that pre-shaping, which it's the name of the book, so it's obvious the key concept is the shaping, and then and again I feel that the shaping is part, do we have the appetite for this? Is this something we want to build, as well as how do we make it in a way that it will succeed within the bet, that it doesn't. The big problem I think with our Agile is that we have these tasks that roll over iteration, and that's the thing, is because we haven't shaped it, or we don't pull it off the table anymore like they're supposed to do. That I think is the big thing. But this is the part where it looks kind of just like Agile, except for the pre-shaping part.
Yeah, and the small team part, in a bigger team, that would be ideal to have small teams work on focusing on just one thing over 6 weeks. I think that's a pretty good like workflow to like utilize time like in little buckets of teams. Yeah, which our team is too small to do that because we're constantly like all of us are working on like one thing at a time.
Oh, but we do split stuff up. We have
How we
different
do.
groups, and not everyone works on everything.
That's true.
All right. Anything else?
Hey, anyone else checking in? No.
All right. Next check.
Wake up 10. So when it's time to hand over the responsibility, the duties, like actually doing the project. Okay, so the way they do it is they assign projects, not individual tasks. So they trust the team to take on the project and work within the boundaries of the pitch. The idea is teams love to have freedom versus being treated like ticket takers. Team can make adjustments in practice because they're in the weeds now and they know it best at this point. So that's a little different. Well, kind of, not really. Done means deployed. So they eliminated the vagueness of what does done mean. They just defined it as deployed. So, and you deploy at the end of the cycle. You must deploy. Small batches can be deployed within the cycle if it's needed. And they respect the circuit breaker, what we talked about in chapter 8, needs to be deployed within the appetite provided. If not, then the project does not get an extension and it's canceled. So testing and QA needs to happen within the cycle. So I want to know, like, in what situations, we might talk about this later. Like, I want to know what types of projects that they've canceled and why. Like maybe the tasks like got too overgrown and they couldn't like finish everything in time, which I have more questions on that later. Yes, and testing and QA the last like 2 weeks of the cycle. So their kickoff, again, they had screenshots of what they post. So they post like the high-level drawing to the message board. And then later on, they have a kickoff call to discuss further and answer any questions. And then, so the first few days of like starting the project is just getting oriented. Like you're just getting to know the project and the scope and getting into the code base and getting yourself acquainted with the relevant code. People are learning the lay of the land. They made it a point to say that the managers should respect the space, like not just, you know, like trying to micromanage, like, hey, where's the code, where's the stuff, where is it? Because people have to learn what's going on and like get their footing. And they recommend if the silence doesn't break after 3 days, manager can try to see what's going on. So when you're actually planning the tasks, they define imagined tasks versus discovered tasks. So the imagined tasks are like the initial tasks that you would assume that you would have to do based on you know, the initial lead of the scope and the bet and just, you know, initial like start of the project based on the criteria. And then the discover tasks are tasks discoveries made by doing the real work. So a task that you kind of guess in advance or at planning stages, you come across this a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing. Like for example, for us, like we do our product planning, we make all these cards, and that's our imagined task. And for some things, we're better than others, right? Like our products are all templates, that's easy. And then some of these other bigger projects, we have a guess, and then as we do stuff, we learn. So our tasks change. So for us, we'll make new cards. Sometimes we'll cancel. Like we recently had to cancel a couple cards for Diego stuff where it was either covered or we didn't need. Or in other cases, like right now, like I'm coming up with other things to monitor stuff because I didn't really know how it was going to work until I built it. So for us, we may very seldomly have a shorter time, but more often than others, we make new tasks and then kind of our project grows out a little bit. So I'm curious for them with what are their discovered tasks. make them grow past the cycle they thought, and how they
Yeah,
address that at the table.
that's my question as well. They didn't really provide details on that in this chapter.
Oh, we need to. I'm gonna write this down as stuff to ask Ryan when we talk to him.
Yeah, that's really one that
Because we'll forget. I keep thinking I'll remember this, but I know for certain, in 6 weeks I won't remember the first one.
Yeah, I always take notes all the time. But yeah, that's actually the end of the chapter. So my thoughts and / discussion questions. So the new products approach makes sense to me, starting with high-level ideas from the leadership team and then filter it down. Once they have like a proper vision for the product and they're sure that it's going to solve the problem, and yeah. It does adopt a similar process, but it's about flagging rather than launching to a customer. So all the fine details will be up to developers during actual cycles. Project distribution it'll be interesting to try projects using small teams with one focus and letting team form a task. If that makes sense. I'm not sure what I was thinking there, but yes. Yeah, so let teams make their own tasks. We were just talking about this. Like sometimes tasks are obvious, sometimes they're not. And so going into that, the discovered tasks, doing the identified tasks you can discover a whole host of other tasks. So if that happens, does that maybe get its own product, its own separate cycle? Like if it doesn't have that much to do with the current bet, what if it does? Like it does need to happen in the current cycle, and what if it is necessary to finish the project? Like, but there's like only enough. Like there's only 6 weeks, so like, what do you like? I wonder what they do in those cases. So I guess that's a question for the author.
That when we're shaping, they do try to figure out very hard what the scope is, and more importantly, what's out of scope. So,
right.
So arguably, unless they totally got it wrong, I feel like the stuff is generally out of scope. And what does that mean? That means at the end of the cycle, either we decide, oh, we really need this enough. We have enough appetite to want it. We better put another cycle for these other things. Or maybe they decide, oh, this project is not worth the appetite because we only thought it would be one cycle. But these new things are going to make it a 2 or 3 cycle. Which, back on the earlier when they were talking about, is it the right time? Is it the right appetite? Is it the... should we continue kind of thing? That's something like I don't think we ever have the privilege ourselves to say, oh, should we continue big project day? I don't think we have a choice in that. That's something I think is very different about their approach. Just like your previous slide about the freedom, where it's like, here, let them decide. Don't let them feel like ticket takers. I.e., I feel like they don't make these highly granular tasks because they feel the team gets the 6 weeks to do it as they need to, as long as they make the time limit. So I think that's good or bad. That's good that they have the flexibility, and it's bad because they could miss. I think one good thing about having a 1-week iteration and trying to plan that one is that hopefully you only make 1 week's worth of mistakes.
Right.
So, I thought that was kind of like your second bullet there. Using small teams with one focus and let them form the task. So.
Yeah, I am interested though in like the different paths they take. If it's like scenario A, B, C. So yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Diego? Yeah.
No, I have the same curiosity as you said. I don't have much to add to it.
As always, Alexis has the prettiest slides. You can tell which one of us is not the programmer. team.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can tell which one of us is not the programmer on the team because she has the best slides.
Thanks. It's just a template on Google Slides.
I know, but it's like the color and the top and the things, and I think you.
Yeah, and also I was gonna say like their product, like Basecamp is like a productivity tool, right? So it depends on like what type of business you're in and what kind of customers you're trying to serve. Like, yeah, I guess for them this like, you know, because they're constantly just like adding features or like coming up with ideas for a new product, and it's very like, I guess, productivity centric and digital tools centric.
Well,
they can afford that.
Yeah, well, you're right. It's because they get to pick what they make, right?
Yeah.
I want to say clearly for us, but I bet you for most software shops that aren't a single product or startup sort of thing, you get handed what to do. Like certainly all of government contracting is the government tells you, hey, we want one of these things, and of course the way they get the contracts, lowest bidder wins. You get told what to do. You get told how much money and time you get. So they have a freedom that I think a lot of.
Well, later in the book they talk about staying debt free and taking feedback from both, not just customers but like the rest of the company. So it's not completely they decide, but they take a lot of input, right?
Yeah.
Like they get like these raw ideas. And you talked about staying debt free. This one is like just a paragraph thing where gradually they say no, like a gentle no to people. It's like it's perfectly fine to say no, because saying no, it doesn't mean that it's not gonna get done. It doesn't mean that it's not gonna get shaped up into a bed or whatever, right? Into an appetite. But it means that you're still free to decide what's gonna get done, right? Saying yes to these raw ideas, it means now it occupies time on the board, time on your mind, time. You make a commitment of that something's going to get done, right? And like if you look at our backlog, and I'm talking not just what we have in Pivotal, but like backlog that is at the moment hidden from us, right? It will be overwhelming. Like the rest of the company has so many ideas that they all want to get done at some point, that it's enough for like years worth of work.
Yeah.
And as we do our own grooming of our Pivotal, the rest of the company makes their own grooming at some point. But like this is like an incoming. I feel like the people that deal with that have this incoming doom feeling, like we have all of this stuff that needs to get done, right? And that is the debt, because at some point they come with those ideas. Somebody says, okay, yes, let's put it in the backlog, and it occupies mental capacity and creates worrying about all of this stuff that needs to get done. So I think by doing, like, saying no, not occupying space on your mind, and they actually get to do more of what you're talking about, picking the projects. It's not like they decide what they get built, but they kind of decide when they get built, right? And they're free of thinking what's more important right now versus a backlog that might not be pertinent anymore.
Yeah, like they spent like 2 years on a new product. So that gives you a sense of like their time of expectation.
Right. So it's very interesting to me that we do it, because it feels like a mix of agile or waterfall, but some of the practices go beyond. They're more about project management than development. Like this whole thing of saying no and not keep a backlog of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they mentioned it like, in multiple chapters now. They think that there isn't a backlog. There might be a backlog of bugs, but there is not a backlog of projects.
Well, that was back to the thing about if it's important, someone will remember.
Right.
And which I find interesting. But I as I get older and my former incredibly super good memory gets less good.
Well, it's not like you're gonna remember. Like you're gonna keep track.
I know.
Somebody's gonna keep track of it.
There's plus and minus, but I fear without a dedicated backlog, stuff that could be important gets lost because I just forget stuff, like important stuff. Like what was the thing earlier we said? I forgot about STP. You know, it's like I forgot we had STP. I forgot it was Monday. It's like that's something. You know, it's like crap. I'm getting it. So you know, it's like so you remember you forget important stuff sometimes. So I feel that's bad. But on the other hand, it's like we have to do backlog grooming because our backlog is constantly growing. So it goes both ways. There's a mistake. Backlog can grow out of control, and that's probably why they don't do it. But if you don't put it into this recordable medium that you review on a regular basis, you forget it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. I think it is when you're talking about if we think about the stuff that before it comes to us, the whole company does have a zillion ideas. And they come through our product management. Terry kind of, gets them to prioritize, and then she gets an idea of, she basically makes her own pivotal cue. Look, you think project A is going to take 2 months, and then you think project B, what's more important? Okay, for this year we have 12 months worth of stuff. Who gets what? This is first, this is second, this is third. Oh, it's November, now we got to switch gears because this is more important for now. She does a lot of that but not only the backlog, but also the shaping. Like we spend a lot of effort between Terry and Jeff about asking questions and getting stuff.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like a couple of years ago, maybe 1 year ago, I looked at her list, and there were about 50 2-month projects. I'm like, this is like 5 years worth of development on that board, and it wasn't even the full list. But she had to maintain it, right? Rather than say just no to half of them. This is like if somebody cannot come to you with, this is like it's been always my biggest pet peeve in every company. I used to work with a guy very much was very much like Trump. And one of his favorite things to do was like, our number one priority is this. Our number one priority is this. And it will go down the line as like 6 or 7 number one priorities. And at the end of it, I was like, Mike, you have to pick one of them. They cannot all be number one priorities, right? And the same thing, like they come in every company, that somebody comes to you and with like 10 different projects, and they're all number one priority. They're all important, but they cannot make their mind of which one they want first. So it's up to the development team or whoever to prioritize them for them, right? Which is not our job. And maintain a backlog of them, which also is not our job, because by the time we get to do them, they might not be necessary. They might be obsolete. And if you think about how much time we spend collectively grooming, I mean, you drive it, but we groom every week. We spend 30 minutes?
Depend. I'm trying to make it faster, but it's done. We made huge damage before we started grooming. It was ridiculous, and we've now looped over like 5 or 6 times. I mean, we still have cards that never go away, but
Right.
but we do have cards that, which again, I like that we go back and we see it and go, oh, and I go, oh, that's still important. Not important enough for us to do yet, but definitely something we should do at some point until it becomes obsolete.
Well, let's put it this way: if everybody had their own list, right? Rather than all of us spending, it's like 8 of us, right? 30 minutes. 8 times 30 is 4 hours of collective development. If everybody were to do their own grooming for their own important stuff, every once in a while you will get to pitch it. But not everybody gets to spend 4 hours. Like 4 hours of development or 4 hours of collective time will not be spent every week. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Especially for a company with such a low churn as ours. It makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Any thoughts? Discussion? All right. Who's looked ahead? How big are the next?
Like nobody has a camera, so I think it's just the 3 of us.
What's the anyone look ahead? How big are the next chapters? Anyone hasn't gone? Should Jeff go? Jeff, are you able to go? I would be curious to see Jeff. Jeff, please.
But by the way, I think you number the chapter wrong. Like the one you were just saying is chapter 9, handover responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9 and 10. 10. She did 9 first, and then wasn't 10.
Right. Chapter 10 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages, 11. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 is longer. All right. Jeff, are you going to do one?
We saw Jeff unmute, but we don't know.
Oh, he's not here.
Is he in the parking lot? Are you in the parking lot for internet?
He's shocking us.
When do you want me to do one? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on, but sure, why not?
It's 2 weeks, like normal. Chapter, hand of responsibility 11. So just one chapter?
Would this be on like the 24th of August?
It would be 2 weeks from now, which is...
Sure, what chapter?
Chapter 10.
Yes,
Wait, chapter 10 or chapter 11?
11.
Chapter.
We just did 10.
No, 10 is get one piece done.
No, 11. It says right above it, chapter 11. Hand of responsibility was 10. Part 3 building, chapter 10, hand of responsibility, chapter 11 is one piece done.
Oh, mine is in fact the number different.
Are you looking on the web page or the PDF?
PDF.
Oh, then I guess there's another chapter on the web page, because on the web page, chapter 11 is get one piece done.
All right.
Okay, what's the chapter called again?
Get one piece done.
Get one.
Oh, see, I see. You're in the office. You actually have internet.
And is it the same name in yours, Diego, even though it's a different chapter number?
Yeah, get one piece done.
Okay, all right.
I guess the web page is more up to date than the PDF. So, all right, well, cool. So we'll see Jeff with get one piece done in 2 weeks. We'll have great discussionary points because you're more on the shaping side of things. Correlate as far as our correlations to this process. Maybe you can. Though ironically, get one piece done is probably more development than shaping.
Oh, you know what it is? Chapter 8 is split up in 8 and 9.
Get one piece done. Blah blah blah. Okay, so important points. We should have lots of post-its everywhere to make it look like we're busy, and we should put lots of charts up to make it look like we're busy. No, I'm sorry.
Oh, you got some?
Oh, you're revealing your secrets.
No, I'm just scrolling through the book here.
Chapter 11 looks relatively short.
Hold on. Can
It's not really her thumb, but it looks like her thumb.
All right.
that's a cat with an opposable thumb.
Oh, it's dark. Yeah, it's accurate. There you go.
Let's go. Yeah, chapter 11 looks short. It's probably a 10-minute thing. And I don't know what you're showing, Gabe.
Hang on, so you can see it. Cause you're...
Pretty cool.
So
That's all. It actually is. It's pretty short.
all right. How about 11 and 12?
Oh wait, map the scopes. Let's see. Oh, they use the same graphic on both chapters. That's kind of. Let's see. Sure, 11 and 12. Wait, I'm seeing how long 12 is.
But it looks like it's that same drawing of the thing with different check marks.
12 is long. Sure, I'll do 11 and 12. Why not?
All right, awesome. So we'll Jeff will do 11 and 12. I'll get to see what fabulous PowerPoint skill you have. And that'll do it. Yes. Awesome. Well, see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.